Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca, Canada's authority on home ownership. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back on, Jim.
Ross, a listener from Ontario asks, I'm a buying program member in Ontario and really appreciate the newest platform we now have access to. I'm wondering if Ross can explain why only charts from his company show the real price decline since the spring and no mainstream media news reports are citing similar declines.
Well, I guess I appreciate the kind words. But the truth is, I'm not a salesman. Let's be honest. The platforms that we facilitate are not into sales. We don't have to sell anything to earn a living. Now, mind you, when you're not in sales, you have to sell a lot more to earn the same amount of money you were making when you're actually earning commission. But I think you reach a point in life where letting people know the truth is more important than filling your pockets. So the truth of the matter is, the reason why mainstream media doesn't report declining house prices is because the way that the salesmen are reporting information to those same mainstream media outlets. When you have trade associations that are built for salesmen, those trade associations are going to act as or salespeople. I'm a guy, so I'm going to call it salesmen in this reference. Mind you, my signs always said salesperson because I worked with my mom and my wife, and you would never get away with saying a salesman with the two of them around. But when you have a trade association that was formed and built by salespeople, that trade association is going to sell you a message. And that message is anything that can help those salespeople earn commission. So when they're using a year-over-year comparison, you're never going to know what's actually happening in the market. One of the new reasons that this listener, I guess they didn't leave their name, has received the information on a new platform is so that this type of information can be delivered for those who are actively in the process of buying a home. And they're just timing the market and they're waiting to buy. They want to save wealth through the buying process. So in this case, in Ontario, yes, it's true that prices peaked the way that we measure them in March. The aggregate price measurement peaked in May. But regardless, if you go back to March, you've got April, May, June, July, and August. Prices have been falling, and they're already falling again as the third week in September. We'll know later next week what the final decline was in that province. Because we measure home buyers and not home sales, we measure things totally differently. We need to understand where the share of sales, they're the share of purchases each month are going. If we don't know that, then we couldn't forecast where the prices are going to be for 8 months, a year, 18 months out from now. That's another one of the benefits that this particular person now has access to. So they're getting forecasts now that are 18 months out. Okay, so they're going to be able to record that and fact check our comments against it. Now, in this case, again, this is a person who's actively in the process of wanting to own a home. So this is not what an ordinary homeowner needs to have. When you're just monitoring the market for casual purposes, in other words, you're doing it in order to understand, should I be taking equity out of my home now and investing it elsewhere? Should I be paying down my mortgage instead? Should I not be paying down my mortgage? Should I change my amortization schedule? Should I be renovating my home? Those are different questions. They don't demand the same amount of market intel because you're not moving. You just want to know what's happening with your home equity. So for this particular person, they need to know what's happening in the market at all times. So when organized real estate is telling you, oh, prices are up 13% year over year, the benchmark price is up 20%, when we're telling you, no, prices have actually been correcting for the last 5 months in Ontario, you're probably not going to buy if it's sitting there staring you in the face that prices have been dropping. If you understand how the multiplicity of sales is happening, you have a better understanding of why sales are increasing or why they're declining. Okay, so this type of information is never been relayed to the public because it's against the interest of a trade association for salespeople. Now, when I'm looking at it here, there's been about a $25,000 real decline in purchase price by home buyers. But again, if you're the general public, you're never going to know that this is happening. In other words, because we know that in the way that the MLS system reports their numbers, the way that the Trade Association for Salespeople is going to sell their message, house prices can actually be declining from March through till December, yet they're still going to report a year-over-year increase. They're not going to say prices have been declining for the last 9 months or 10 months. They're going to say, oh no, prices are up year-over-year as of January. It's not until you get past that 12-month point in the cycle where the reality of what's been happening in the last year hits home. In other words, about 250,000 families. Well, it's actually more than that. It's going to be somewhere around 330,000 families in Ontario will acquire a home the 12 months between March of 2021 and March of 2022. Now, it may reach as high as 360,000, but I'm going to stick with the 340 for because that's where the trends are looking right now. All of those people, 340,000 families, are going to be making a home buying decision, believing a narrative that was created in March of 2021. Why? Well, you see, folks, in March and April of this year, which is where peak house price, where the sales mix and the multiplicity of sales was at its highest. In other words, first-time buyers were not a big enough share of the market at the same moment in time where the number of sales needed to complete a sales chain was at the greatest time in history was March and April of 2021, which is why you had the highest house price gain in those 2 months, the highest average purchase price in those 2 months. You also had about 54,000 sales that took place in those months, meaning those 2 months are probably going to command upwards of 22 to 24% of all the sales that took place in all 12 months. They're never going to tell you that. You can go back to every report issued by a trade association for salespeople for the last 40 years, and they never have explained to you how it works, how their MLS stats work. So that's why the mainstream media isn't reporting the same thing that you see on your dashboard, okay? So while we're measuring real house price change, in other words, you're not going out and buying a home on false propaganda, 340,000 families will. As the year rolls over, they'll realize that they made a huge mistake. The economy will have slowed down by then. Interest rates will have so much upward pressure next spring, I don't think anybody has any comprehension of that. But like when I'm making that statement, what I'm saying is that we just saw all major Canadian banks within the last 2 weeks aggressively go at new mortgage origination by reducing their discounted rates on 5-year term. It's one of the most aggressive periods in the history of Canadian banking. What they do is, what they believe is that the housing market is still hot, because that's what the Trade Association for Salespeople for Canada that tells them. They believe it. Their economists believe it. Their economists have grown up believing it. So they say, oh, well, our market share isn't as big as what it was. We must be doing something wrong. We better cut our rates to try to get our market share back up. Now, there's some irony that all the banks are doing it at the exact same time. You would think that intelligent people running Canadian banks would smell something is fishy, but they don't. Instead, they believe they're losing market share. Well, what's going to happen when this reality hits home is these rates are going to bump right back up and then start increasing. The Bank of Canada is going to have to respond to the rating agencies downgrading or threat of downgrading of our credit because of a faltering housing market. These things are not new, folks. There's a famous video out there by Ray Dalio that talks about shows the business cycle. Well, what Ray doesn't mention is the trading cycle, because Ray doesn't know about the trading cycle. He follows the business. Now, he's right with what he says about the business cycle. He doesn't know that the trading cycle dictates the business cycle. It leads it. It led it in 1987. It led it in 2005, and it's leading it now today. Banks can only do so much. The Bank of Canada has continually tried to stop the trading cycle from going down its downward swing since 2017. Okay? Well, interest rates can only go so low. What you're reading on your dashboard is something that you will never see released by a trade association for salespeople who need to earn their money from commissions. You have this advance warning that no one else has. My personal belief is everyone should have this advance warning. I don't believe that any trade association for salespeople needs to issue false releases in order to sell a message for their members. The only reason they need to release these messages is because they want the largest number of members possible. They don't want just the best members to succeed. They want the worst member in their system to succeed. They want the 70% who shouldn't be in the business succeeding. So they issue these false reports. They've done this ever since the first trade association was created for salespeople. That is why your dashboard has recorded 5 months of house price decline in Ontario, while no one else has reported the same.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, a realtor from Abbotsford, has this question. Ross talks about how MLS stats are misleading and how prices can be falling as our local board is reporting price gains. Can he explain what is the difference between MLS stats today and from the pre-2000 period he often references? I've only been in the business since 2006, so I'm a newbie as far as Ross defines it.
Yeah, you're a newbie the way that I define it. But you got to remember, there was 3 generations of my family who were members of the Canadian Real Estate Association, and myself, I was a member for over 25 years. We developed the digitization of MLS data in the Real Estate Board of Hamilton, Burlington. We were on the committees who formed those who established that data move from paper to digital. We were the first in the country to have a computer terminal in our own office directly hooked up to the MLS system. Let me state that again. We were the first in Canadian history, to have that. We may have been the first in North America. I don't know if there was anybody in San Diego at the time that beat us to the punch. So, yeah, you're a newbie. That is not a bad thing, okay? So that's not a bad thing. You don't carry with you the legacy of seller agency, okay? So remember that. Your mind should never have been clouded by a seller-exclusive legal framework to trade homes. That said, since you started the business in 2006, which is just after it became utilized available across the country, you're still clouded by those who trained you, whose own experiences was rooted in that seller-exclusive framework. So when I'm talking about stats being misleading, they are designed to be misleading. Okay, anybody who participated on an MLS stats crew back in the 1980s or 90s knows that they are designed to be misleading. Because legally, you had to mislead the public because it was a seller-exclusive infrastructure. It was illegal prior to when you started selling houses for any home buyer in this country to receive representation when buying a home. It was illegal. Let me explain how absurd this is. I was a third-generation realtor. We were the number one real estate agent in Canada for RE/MAX for 7 consecutive years. We sold more houses as a team, earned more commissions, I should say, as a team than any other realtors in Canada during that period. We were known as the RE/MAX team from coast to coast, not by our own brand, but by the brand RE/MAX. It wasn't until 2005 or 1995 where RE/MAX came to us and asked us if we would kindly, and I mean this sincerely, they asked us if we would stop using the RE/MAX team. So we switched to the K team at that time. But so then again, at that time, there was also the TV show. The A team was out, so the K team was kind of, I know it's hokey, but everything in real estate's hokey. So look at the glamour shots that the realtors are using today, posing on Rolls Royces, smoking cigars. I mean, you can't get anything more hokey than that. But back then, everybody knew that that's what the stats were designed to do because they had to get sellers the highest price possible. So what does that mean? If you go back and listen to the previous section where I was talking about house prices declining in Ontario now for 5 months, but no mainstream media has been reporting. Well, you know something? January the 15th, the Canadian Real Estate Association, the Ontario Real Estate Association, the Toronto Real Estate Board, the Realtors Association of Hamilton, Burlington, the London St. Thomas Real Estate Board will all be reporting year-over-year gain. They won't be reporting that this is the 9th month of declining house prices. This is the 9th month of a declining housing market, slowing housing market. They won't announce that. Instead, they're going to report a gain. I personally find that there's nothing wrong with that before you started in the business because that was the legal framework that the government forced us to work under. But we started in 1995 down the road towards seller agency. In 2000, I wrote my first buyer agency contract. Okay, the night at 12:01 a.m. the first year the buyer agency was legal in Ontario, I wrote a buyer's contract and I signed it because I wanted to have the first contract signed. Everybody fought it. All the franchises fought it. They fought it right on through till 2005 when we finally had it enacted. And even after it was enacted, they fought it. You can see the reference of this fight in every provincial trading regulation that exists in this country. They're all skewed towards the seller. They still talk as if it's the seller. You can actually go out there and see you can see regulators telling the public that home buyers should use a realtor because the seller pays for it. Now, that has never been true because the buyer has always paid all of the commission. They don't only pay their commission to their real estate agent, they also pay the commission to the listing agent. Because I can tell you, there is not a seller in Canada who would not willingly cut out the real estate agent and get the same amount of money in their pocket, or maybe $1,000 more, by cutting them out. So this is how the system is designed, and you just have to accept that. You have to find a way, as a realtor, to work around that. Because I know there are certain rules and regulations in your MLS system that prevent you from telling the truth, i.e., you cannot criticize another member. Okay, you can't do that. Now, you can be unethical. You can violate the rules that you've agreed to follow, and you can go ahead and criticize someone. You can joke about their listing. You can say how the listing was overpriced. Oh, this person doesn't know anything. But that's unethical. If you want to talk that way, then you need to leave the business and become an advisor or an analysis or whatever you want to do. Find another careers would be my best choice, because you need to follow the rules as a licensed salesperson. So the number of how a housing trading cycle works is the law of the multiplicity of sales state the most number of sales are going to be reported at the same time that the highest average purchase price will appear. That means when a housing market begins to cool, the weight given to that peak trading cycle will always be the greatest. And the quicker the market cools down, the more weight, increasing weight, the peak of the cycle holds. So what that means is that in March, I could have said, I'm going to go back to the Ontario synopsis, March was probably only going to hold 12% share of the annual number of homes purchased at year's end. Okay, so if I didn't know the housing market was going to correct, or I didn't know when it was going to correct, that's a statement that I would have made. And then in April, I would have said, oh, it's 13%. Oh, well, now March is going to be 13%. And then when April, May happened, oh, looks like March is going to carry 15%. And then June, oh, actually March is going to be 18%. And then when July's come, oh wow, now March looks like it may be 21%. So if you're not understanding that, and if the public isn't told that, the public has no idea what's actually going on. In my opinion, it's a scam. It's a con. Okay? Tell the public the truth. House prices have fallen for the 5th consecutive. Home buyers, here's the truth. Home buyers have been spending less for 5 consecutive months in the province of Ontario. The number of sales being reported has fallen for 3. Price crest always before sales turn. This is an old piece of wisdom that I was taught when I first started the business with my dad in 1987. Okay? Like, this is a truth. This is a fact. This is a law of real estate, or a law of MLS systems, at least anyway. So that's why housing prices will be falling, because with each slowing month of a housing market, the peak months commands a higher and higher and higher share of that year's sales. If we were to tell everybody the truth, why don't we just add up the average prices for each month and divide them by 12? Why has organized real estate never done that? Why have they not said, oh, this is the 5th consecutive months where home buyers are spending less money? Let the public figure it out. The public are smart. Homeowners are smart. Home buyers, I have never watched a single home buyer of the thousands that we dealt with make a bad decision when they were given all the facts. They have made a decision that wasn't 100% in their best interest, but I've never watched a home buyer make a bad decision. People are too smart. People are actually too careful with their money. So that's why your real estate board will be reporting gain all the while house prices are correcting behind the scenes.
Ross, CMHC has put out its risk assessment report. It's up in 10 of 15 markets, but surprisingly, the risk assessment for Vancouver was downgraded. Why is it less risky to buy a home in Vancouver than just about everywhere else in Canada?
Oh, Jim. Oh, Jim. Okay, so folks, housing market assessment is measuring the market from the quarter before. So they issue the report for September, and they actually tell you that the readings that they're using are from before July. Read the appendix to the report and read how it works. I also want to tell your listeners, go back and get a report from the early reports and see how they've changed this methodology and how they report in this index. because this is very important for everyone to understand. CMHC does not know how housing markets function, okay? So when they issued this warning, they should have issued this warning way back in December, not September, like not 9 months later. This is how we view it. This is how we view it, Jim. There's a tsunami heading for the beach, and there's a seismologist standing on the beach who studies tsunamis. And he looks out into the ocean, he sees this record-breaking tsunami heading towards him. He gets out his viewfinder and he measures the height of this tsunami. And he reads, wow, this is a record breaker. Man, when this tsunami hits, it's going to be crazy. He then turns around and goes over to everybody on the beach and tells them, nothing to look at here. Don't worry about it. Go about your business. These people listen to the expert, this seismologist. He's got a PhD, and they go about their business. Because what they look and they think is coming, clearly they're wrong. Because the expert, the one the government tasked to give them information, the one they're told to trust and believe, the one that has been around for decades and decades and decades, the one who actually oversees the mortgage market, who insures their mortgage, has told them there's nothing to look at. Then the wave crashes. They're standing there. They don't understand. They're soaking wet. They're just pummeled by this wave. They're standing on the beach, dripping wet. And they really think they were hit by a tsunami. House price peak. Crazy house prices. They really believe that they were hit by it. But the seismologist says, oh, no. That didn't happen. It's not happening right now. It's really not going on. Then, as the wave starts going back up into the ocean as it's crossing the beach, all of a sudden the seismologist says, hey, by the way, we got a problem. There's a tsunami that's about to hit. I hope you listeners understand how absurd this is from our perspective. Our belief is, and the way that one of the key reasons we have assumed the position in the marketplace that we have is because CMHC actually believes what they're reporting. The tsunami hit in March, folks. If you're Quebec, it hit in August, okay? It finished up in August. It's now withdrawing even in Quebec. All provinces that the tsunami hit months ago. The water has been receding. How do you know that the wave had crashed and done all the damage that it was going to be done, and that it's on its way out? Well, because home buyers are spending less money. The average home buyer is spending less money. In British Columbia, in Alberta, in Ontario, in Quebec, in all of those provinces, home buyers are spending less money. The warning has come 9 months too late. The public should have been told in December that the tsunami was going to crash in March and to watch out for it. Don't get caught up in the wave, because right now it's dragging those who made a decision to keep standing there back into the water, and it's about to drown them. They were drowned in debt. Now they're going to be drowned in loss, wealth loss, because CMHC failed to be a good seismologist. They failed to warn everyone in December that this tsunami was going to crest and crash. It is now 9 months later, and they issue this report. Let me put this as distinctly as I can. This is disgusting. This is outrageous. This is an embarrassment. They have thousands of employees at CMHC. 9 months after the crest of the tsunami was able to be recorded, they're saying that they've now recorded. It crashed in March. It is now September. They have increased the risk reading of 10 of the 15 municipalities that they're covering. They don't tell people, they don't tell the readers what they're actually reporting is MLS system. So when they're reporting Victoria, they're not actually reporting the city of Victoria. They're reporting the MLS system of Victoria. When they're reporting Vancouver, they're not actually reporting Vancouver. Oh, and let's remember, Vancouver things have gotten better, folks. Is there a single listener in Vancouver listening to this show who believes the housing market has gotten better in Vancouver? It's gotten safer, less risk, no warning. Is there one single listener? You see, this is what I said in the previous section, Jim. People are intelligent. Families know what's going on. So even if they didn't study about housing markets, even if they didn't study about a stock market, even if they didn't study about which bank to use, or how long of an amortization to take, or how, should they pay down the mortgage or not, they still know. The spidey senses are still tingling. They know because they see it with the restaurants they go into. What groceries are being purchased by their neighbors. Do their neighbors' kids have new clothes this month? Or are they still wearing clothes maybe a little bit longer than they would have when things were better? They see their neighbors not moving, not listing their homes for sale. So when your local trade association for salespeople tells everybody, oh, the reason the market's slowing down is there's not enough inventory, the spidey sense is firing off in 11 million Canadian families. Those 11 million Canadian families in aggregate knows what the truth is. The truth is people are afraid. They're afraid of that tsunami. They knew that tsunami was coming. So they refused to put their families in a position of danger. Something that CMHC could have prevented all those families who bought homes while the tsunami was hitting from taking on that amount of damage, financial damage, lifetime damage that's about to be done. This report is absurd. It's unethical. And I certainly hope that now that we have a minority parliament, that someone is going to pull these staffers up from CMHC and demand they explain how a small firm like mine could have forecasted the crest of a tsunami in December for March, yet CMHC comes out in September today and says, oh, by the way, the tsunami's getting higher. It's not, folks. It's already receding. And now you're going to start to see the damage.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been homeownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross, and he loves to answer them, you can send them to info@housestreet.com, and we'll ask that question for you. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.